I am Christina Suter, and this is the Real Estate Breakthrough Show, where we talk about the reality of real estate, the mindset you need in order to face the reality of what it is, and tips and tricks to get you moving forward in investing. I am your host, Christina Suter. Give us some quick tips on what it is that looks like red flags to you when you're looking at a deal.
Well, an obvious one is not having skin in the game. If the operator doesn't put a lot of their own money that they have to write a check for, not talking about the acquisition fee that they reinvest, if they don't put their own skin in the game, significant skin, we won't invest, no matter how else everything else looks. Another one is if they lie to us. We do NOI, net operating income audits. That's a third-party audit that costs $9,000 or $10,000 per asset. It doesn't come out of the investor's pocket, not a penny of it does. But we do that to make sure that everything they told us, or at least maybe the seller told us, and they're our client might be the buyer, that it's all really true. That's another one. Gut feel is another one. Gut feel includes, I think God created us with like 3,000 different receptors to pick up on, unspoken signals that we don't even know what those are, but they're there. And sometimes that translates into a funny, queasy gut feeling. And sometimes if they're a really big promoter, like they've got it all together too well, that's not a good sign. That's not always that way, but that's one. Of course, some obvious things, if they're taking risky floating rate debt, if they're counting on interest rates to stay low, if they're counting on, rents to go up 9.25% in Tucson the next 7 years, like they did the last 7, that's not a good, those are bad signs. And there's so many more. We have a 27-point due diligence process that checks out all that stuff and so much more.
It makes a lot of sense. And I love the 27-point due diligence process. We need to do an interview on that one, because I think that people don't, and I know maybe I sound like I'm being silly, but actually I'm not. I think people don't understand all the time when you say, hey, they're anticipating the rents to go up by 9%, just as they have for the last several years in Tucson, right? And that ends up being a red flag for you, but not everybody's going to red flag that because, well, it has been going up 9%. So, gee, that makes sense. But it's like, well, no, it doesn't make sense. Like I'm investing in Tulsa. And in Tulsa, the rents went up by 21% in 2020. Wow, isn't that amazing?
That is amazing.
But how much did they go up last year? They went up by 5%. So I could say, hey, if I was buying in 2021, I could say, the average of the last 5 years of rents going up in Tulsa has been using the 21% in 2020 as a form of raising that average across multiple years, project forward. But then that's not what's happening currently, right? So there's an inconsistency in that. What's happening currently is 3 to 5%. And so above a 5% increase, even maybe above a 3% increase, I project 3%, 2 to 3% increase, ends up being, I think, a little assumptive, but not assumptive because of the world in general or US in general, but because of what Tulsa's history has been, then it's out of step with Tulsa's history. So sometimes it's hard for us from LA to be able to understand a Midwestern city and what that due diligence could look like or what the numbers could look like.
Absolutely. It's probably step on somebody else's toes, including our Wellings intern here today. But Warren Buffett said any company with an economist has one too many employees. And he also said, we're not interested in anyone's predictions, including our own. This is kind of crazy and it's hard to believe, but I got to take him at his word. Warren and Charlie said they never had one conversation in 59 years or whatever of investing together. They didn't have one conversation about the economy or any economic predictions when they made a decision to buy or sell anything. And they said that we're looking for durable products run by great management teams at prices well below the intrinsic value. And they said, if we can get those three things, we don't care what the economy is doing or saying. And that's what Wellings Capital is trying to do. We're looking for durable asset types like self-storage and mobile home parks run by great operators at, with a lot of intrinsic value. That means a lot of value add potential on the bone.